Hello, and welcome to Nuts About Baseball, a podcast that will entertain you with discussions involving everything baseball. I'm your host, Joe Grimme, and I appreciate you joining me. Sit back, relax, and enjoy as I share my passion for the sport we call America's pastime. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Nuts About Baseball. I'm your host, Joe Grimme, and I am joined today by a reoccurring guest, Scott Schweitzer, head baseball coach at Campbell County. How are you doing, Scott?
Good. How are you, Joe?
I am wonderful. I am so happy to have you back. You are a great interview, and I will just go ahead and say this. You did an episode with me about a year ago or so, and you continue to be the number one downloaded or listened to podcast episode since the existence of Nuts About Baseball.
You know, I take that as a compliment, I guess.
A lot of people like to hear your talk. They like to hear your stories. It's entertaining. I've done over 130 episodes, and it's neat to see. So I appreciate you coming back because I think this one will get a lot of listens as well. We're going to talk about your team and how it did this year and kind of what we have to look ahead. You had a great season overall. You were 25-13 at this point, and you were 12-2 in the region. 10 seniors. That's a senior heavy team.
Yeah, I mean, 10 seniors, and they've been together for a long time. Most of these kids have been since 8th grade, and you know what makes them a special group is most of them have grown up together. A lot of foundations of friendships laid well before high school baseball. So it's fun to see. You know, the parents pretty good. They get along, and you know it's been fun to watch the group of kids get after it together and have such success down the stretch.
Well, you personally have been doing this a very long time. How do you get geared up each season to stay positive and motivate these teams, these players, as they come in for a new season?
I mean, the game has drastically changed since I started. And, you know, let's be honest, I didn't start that long ago, but it has changed so much since then. You know, we were talking the other day, some of the lessons I've learned along the way, and I'm terrible with remembering years, but I remember my first regional title loss and how upset I was. And, you know, I've watched some other young coaches, you lose that game, and you know, I was distraught. And when I got back I couldn't talk to the kids. And so it spawned a new tradition for us that year. We started the senior send-offs because the adult in the situation, I didn't know what to say, couldn't come up with what to say. So I postponed it for 20 minutes by telling them we're going to meet back and we're going to go to the field and we're going to do a senior send-off on the field. And, you know, behind the scenes, that was for me. But when I got back to the field, we turned the lights on and I come in and they're around the mound playing Duck, Duck, Goose on a tarped mound. And I was like, I was furious. I was like, oh my God, we just lost our last game and these guys are here playing Duck, Duck, Goose. And I was fired up. I was going in and I'm like, and I stopped and I had that aha moment as a coach this is their last game, not mine. Like I get to go again. And it kind of changed my outlook that, you know, to get back to the question to prepare for a season is, you know, everything we do, we have to finish it with having a good time with it, having fun with it. You know, I've watched so many teams and seen so many really good teams over the years that, you know, you feel like you got to practice for 3 hours because they're that good and they got to meet those expectations. When in reality, that is in my opinion, far from the truth. It's keeping them focused, keeping them going, getting their work, you know, continuing the growth and all of that. But at the same time, you know, taking a step back and realizing it's still a game and it's not so grueling. And you know, we push hard early. You know, we practice a lot. You know, once February 15th hits, that week starts and we're 6 days a week. And, you know, Sundays are our day off and we're going to push. But when we get to postseason, now's the time, you know, you put the best lineup you can put out there. You try to put the kids in successful situations. And myself, I try to get out of the way, including my coaches, you know,
Yeah.
And people laugh and I'm like, but I really do. You know, they're not trying to make errors. This isn't the time to scream and yell and try and push buttons, in my opinion. I watch a lot of coaches get into the analytics and start moving and shifting and going. And I try to, you know, learn from what I watched all season to put our kids in the best position to win in the postseason. And I think we've had pretty good success over the last 2 years doing it.
Absolutely. A great season overall. Did you do anything in particular to prepare for the 2026 season differently than you have in the past?
No, I mean, you know, the addition of you know, we have fantastic facilities at the high school. You know, we use the turf football field. That turf football field has our turtle on it, and we start, that first Saturday of tryouts is we'll start an inter squad with all fastballs, and that's like the first bullpens of stuff, and and it just builds from there. You kind of devise and define your team there. JV and varsity practice together all the way up until about 3 days before the season. And I think it gives me a full scope of what's in our program. It's also helped me find pitching that you didn't know you had. You get some young guys and they get opportunities to throw against some older guys and you see success. And, those kind of things have helped me find some guys that when you get into stretches in the season, you're going to need young guys when you play 6 games in 4 days, you're going to need guys that, of all levels up there. And it's so, preparing those kind of things and it helps you along the way. And it also gives you a glimpse of what you got coming.
Your season, you did not lose many games in a row, that's for sure. But back on May 9th, you did start with a 4-game losing stretch, which was very uncommon. You lost to Henry Clay, Lafayette, Harrison County, and Beechwood, all good teams. Did you do anything to turn that team around and keep them motivated? Did you panic? Did your players seem to panic? Or, you had less than a month to go before the district tournament. So how did you right the ship?
No, honestly, we lost those 4 games, and we were in every game. We had a big error or, a bad inning in every one of those 4 games. We win a good game Friday night against Mercer County, come back, and Henry Clay, we have a couple errors, give up 400 runs, I think it was. And, we're in that game, top 25 team in the state. Then we go and Lafayette, they ran a kid out and he pitched a great game, and we stayed with him. We were in the game the whole time, and we had another error that cost us 2 runs, and we lost by 1. And then we rolled into Harrison County, and that's a tough game when you're going into the last week and your 2 regional opponents and you don't play often. And we're pretty, you don't want to show much. And we really didn't show much that day from
Okay,
any
all
side
right.
of the game. It was a weird game. Neither one of us are trying to throw top pitching. It's almost like you're just getting a glimpse at each other. And like I said, we didn't play well at all that day. And then we moved into Beechwood and Schumacher on the mound. And anytime he put him on the mound, he usually rights the ship. And we didn't play great then. We had a couple balls we should have caught in the outfield. We had a couple things we should have done to get out of innings. And he was on a pitch count to be prepared for the district tournament. And it just all, it was 3-0, or I think 4-0 going into the top of the 7th. And I threw a freshman, I threw Travis Reeves, and he got through some innings. So, we had some tough times there with getting, keeping arms healthy, keeping arms ready for postseason. And you run into that stretch. And like I said,
Yeah.
we didn't play great defense. Did I panic? No. You keep pushing, you keep talking about, this is the small things, guys. Look at the small things that have cost us this game. We had this that cost us 2 runs. We had this time, and you just keep pointing out to the kids, and that's kind of how they buy into the message. If you don't take the time to analyze the game and reflect on this, look at this, look at the decision we did here when we could have went first to third, and you try to point out all the little things so they understand, like, when we get to the postseason, if you don't do those little things, this is why you lose, and you're going to play all good teams when you get to the postseason. So, and we've had some tough losses this year. We found some tough ways to lose some games. So, I think you can learn, I don't say there's more to learn from a loss, because that's not the truth in my opinion, but there's a lot to learn from a loss. And, you start looking at why you're losing games and you're able to practice that kind of stuff and talk about that kind of stuff. And then when you've already lived it once, it makes it easier to overcome those situations.
Well, you did right the ship, and boy, did you ever. You came to the district tournament guns a-blazing, and you rolled through. Let's talk about, a little bit about each game. The first one was a short game, 3-inning victory over Calvary Christian, 15-0. Senior Camden T. Meyer led the team with 3 hits and 3 RBIs, and then sophomore Dennis Mercurio added 3 hits and 2 RBIs, and you had a senior on the mound, Lucas Anthrop, who got the win. It's nice to have a short game, I guess, to save some arms in the district tournaments and even the regional, if you could do that as well, right?
Absolutely. It's the name of the game is pitching. And our region ended up getting crazy, but when you start looking at weather and playing and going, you're trying to save your pitching. And when you're able to save your number 1 and you have a number 2 as good as Lucas Anthrop, and you're able to throw him out there, and it's like, he pounded the zone with strikes. Our guys got on early and ran aggressively. We pressed the envelope and took extra bases on every hit we could. There wasn't a lot of home runs, wasn't a lot of walks, and it wasn't horribly defensively played. Our guys just took every extra base they could take, and when you do that, it adds up quick. And
Yeah.
and like I said, Lucas just pounded the zone with 2 pitches and did what he has done down the stretch of the season, and then pretty much
Yeah.
dominated his way through his 9 outs that he had to get.
You move into the championship against Scott. 3-0 victory for you. You only had 3 hits. 2 of them were from Tyler Schumacher, who has been a guest on my podcast. Great kid. He threw a gem on the mound. Complete game, 2 hits, 13 strikeouts. Talk to me about this.
Yeah,
game.
I mean, he kind of did it himself. I think it was the bottom of the 6th. He had been in control of the whole game. Pitching wise, he, every time it would seem like there would be just a little bit of a rally, he would take it up another notch and pick up another strikeout and walk off the mound, and Jay Race did a really good job pitching against us. I think he got overshadowed a little bit and some of the success that they had over there, but I think he had below a 1 ERA coming into the game and was pounding the strike zone, and he kept our hitters off balance and, couldn't come up with much. And, I think it was the bottom of the 6th. We got a walk. Or Tripp got a hit maybe, and then Tyler hits a double off the top of the wall and scores a run, and I mean the ball was crushed, and he scores a run there, and then that run I think I put a pinch runner in for him. I don't know if I still had one, but his run ended up scoring 2, and then he goes out for the 7th and goes a 1-2-3 inning and finishes it off, and we scored another run in there somewhere. They're all running together, but at the end of the day, he had a big hit and continues to do what he does on the mound. And Cam Tiemeyer, Gavin Kramer, those guys had great district tournaments as well. Trip Mercurio. It was fun to see the success of the guys, the core group of guys in the pitching got the job done. They just absolutely pounded the strike zone.
Well, the pitching continued to shine as you moved in the regional tournament. First round, you faced Bracken County, 5-0 victory. Again, your team only had 4 hits, but senior Gavin Richardson and Camden Tiemeyer each had 2 RBIs. Mercurio was back on the mound, another complete game, 2 hits, 7 strikeouts. Did you know at the beginning of the season that this sophomore was going to be so impactful with your season this year?
I mean, I had an idea. I had watched him. He had pitched some JV last year and was really, really successful the times that he pitched JV. He became a mainstay in our lineup at second base at the varsity level. And, I have a hard time if the JV team doesn't have to have them for pitching. I have a hard time sending somebody back down to get pitching because they get hurt, something goes wrong, then you lose a starter in your varsity lineup. So, and I told him, at the end of the year last year, make sure you continue to pitch and work on pitching. You're going to pitch in the future in our program. And early on, we had talked about, the good thing is, everybody thinks we got this and we got that, but no one's seen him yet. And I think he's going to be good for us. And I mean, his ability to pound the strike zone with 3 pitches and just, he's got, ice water in his veins. Every time I've put him out, there's never been a time that he struggled to throw strikes, and he commands the zone. And I mean, not only you mentioned, 2 hitters, 7 strikeouts, it was 69 pitch, 7 inning complete game.
My gosh.
I mean, you talk about, and you can't beat that in Kentucky high school rules. That means he's less than 75. He can come back in 2 days. So ultimately,
Crazy.
he just put himself into that, flavor. In Bracken County, hats off to them. I think they had 8 seniors. The Bachman kid on the mound, he kept us off balance. He was in and out of the zone, up and down, and our guys, I mean, nobody put solid contact. I want to say that it was a 3-0 pitch by Tiemeyer that hit over the center fielder's head scored our first 2 runs, and then it was just kind of like we stayed there, but Tripp never, on the mound, Tripp never ever wavered, just continued to pound the zone, and here we are with a 5-0 victory and only 69 pitches and ready to go for day 2.
That's what they say, or what they call video game numbers.
Yes, absolutely.
That's nuts. Next round, you move on. You played a good George Rogers Clark team. You beat them 8-0. Your bats woke up. You scored 8 runs with 10 hits, but another outstanding performance from Tyler Schumacher, a complete game, 2 hits, 10 strikeouts. Talk to me about him. I talked to him myself, and he's a fine young man, but what has helped him evolve into the dominant player that he is today?
It's his work ethic. There's no doubt about it. He works as hard as anybody that I've ever coached. Just how his preparation for games, he spends 45 minutes stretching, moving, going, he takes care of his entire body. And, he does his workload management. He communicates with me, I remember when he was a sophomore pitching, and you could see he was going to be pretty good. And I was, harping him about developing a routine. And, his dad was like, he was young. And we talked about it. It was like, yes, you're young, but this is when you start to develop how to take care of your body, how to do your thing. And fortunately, he's been around some really good coaches and some really good people, over his years of growing up. And he's developed a great work ethic that has given him the ability to do both hitting and pitching. And, the pitching he just continues to improve upon. And he loves the game too. He absolutely loves to be at the field. He's not the kid that shows up late and leaves early. He enjoys being there. So the work ethic and just the fact that he loves being at the field is, that's always fun to coach too.
Absolutely. This podcast is sponsored by NKY Tutoring. Are you a high school student, or do you have a son or daughter thinking about college? When preparing for the ACT, NKY Tutoring is your ACT math specialist. For anyone that is looking to increase their ACT math score, we can help. We provide students the information to achieve efficiency and confidence on the math section of the ACT. To find out more, you can visit nkytutoring.com or email them at nkytutoring@gmail.com. Move on to the championship. You've got Montgomery County. You beat them 2-0 to win a championship. Junior Gavin Kramer and Camden Tiemeyer each had an RBI. Senior Gino Raimondo and senior Jackson Bittner each added a hit. Senior Lucas Anthrop back on the mound with the victory. 6 innings, 3 hits, 7 strikeouts. How did that feel to bring home another regional championship?
Anytime, those are incredible. I stop to think that it's such a core memory for so many people. You talk about it, you remember it, and then you see guys that won them back in the 80s and 90s, and they're still coming back around and, walking around and going through and talking to those guys and everybody reliving the glory days. So it's fun and to be able to do it in a fashion. And, we've had quite the rivalry with Montgomery County over the years, in the last few years, especially. They got a new young coach that's doing a great job down there, and Coach Sutton, and they're always going to be a formidable opponent. And I think Coach Jacobs has been there through multiple coaches, and he's a mainstay of Montgomery County, and he does a great job with the kids down there as well. And so coming in and they have the Coper kid, and Coach Sutton did, they were playing Scott. Scott jumped up 5-0 and he had saved his ace. So Scott jumps up 5-0 in the second inning. They bring their ace in and he comes in and slams the door. I think he throws, I don't know, inning and 2/3, maybe 2 innings. I'm not even sure. As we're sitting there watching, I'm like, here we go. He's throwing his ace. That means I'm going to have a 2 versus something else that he has. Well, they came out and scored 8 runs the next inning, and he decided to pull his ace with only 22 pitches. So he brought his ace back. It was like, wow. So, it takes some gambling in this stuff in regional tournaments to win. And he gambled and all of a sudden now he's back in the upper hand. He's got his number 1 back and available and ready to go. So, I always hats off to Coach Sutton for coaching a great region and getting there. And, if you would have told me that the first 2 runs in the first inning, that Gavin's double with 2 outs in the first would have been the game winning hit, I would have told you were a liar.
Yeah.
But I mean, Lucas pitched his butt off, but you get the postseason strike zone. It's a whole lot tighter, and and sometimes it's tighter than what we get to watch on TV. But at the end of the day, Lucas stepped up and pounded the strike zone with 2 pitches and occasionally a third. And I said going in, if he had 5 or less walks, we'd be in a good driver's seat here to win. And he walked 5 and hit 1. So we had 1 free pass. But I mean, Lucas has been really, really good. He continues to get better. He's a 3-sport athlete. He was the starting quarterback for the football team, was starting on the basketball team. And I'll say, regional tournaments, he had career numbers in basketball, and he did the same thing in baseball. He, all tournament team. And, it was fun to watch. And then to be able to see Tripp, Tripp hadn't had a great year hitting to his standards, and for him to 3 RBIs in the semifinal game, get the win in game 1, and then come back and close and get the save in game 2. Lucas ran out of pitches and was at the end of his rope, and I brought Tripp in for the 7th, and we escaped with the 2-0 victory. And so, not often that a sophomore can say they got the win in the first round, the save in the championship, and 3 RBIs in the semifinals. So
yeah,
he had a pretty good series.
That's outstanding. And in case the listeners weren't doing the math, that's 5 straight games where you did not give up 1 single run.
Yes.
Do you know if that's ever happened in the postseason? I know it's difficult to look at the historical statistics in high school baseball, but do you have any idea if that's ever been done?
I'll give a shout out to Will Jones. Will from 10thregion.com sent me a text the night of Sunday night and said that in the history of the 10th Region tournament to 1986. So I don't know if his stats stop at 1986 or just that's what he can see.
Yeah.
But back to 1986, we're the first team to have 3 shutouts through the postseasons or 5 shutouts through the postseason that way.
Jeez.
So, and that's just a testament to and we've played great defense. We've pitched, we've played great defense. And ultimately, that's the postseason. That's how you win. Pitching and defense wins the games. And when you're not making errors and you're throwing strikes, you got a good chance to win.
Do you have someone on your staff that you would call your pitching coach?
That's kind of been my forte the whole time.
Sure.
My staff has been awesome. I've had a pretty consistent varsity staff throughout my career. Dave Shepard's been with me since the beginning, and him and I, between him, Eric Clark, and Tim Price, we talk about a lot about who we're going to pitch, how we're going to prepare to pitch, but ultimately, the pitching has always been, that's what I do. That was I said I was a big lefty pitcher. I'm not going to go coach middle infielders. I'm not going to try and coach all the hitters. I don't even want to try to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coach Price does a lot of stuff with the outfielders. Coach Shepard does all the stuff with the infielders, and then myself, I do, I do all the pitching, and then Coach Clark, when he's able to make it, Coach Clark spends time just, he's talking to the kids, and he's positive and keeping going, and then, he's usually going back and covering up everything else we screw up because, he's good at that, and he's the one that comes with ideas. The other day, it's like, hey, let's put a pinch runner in here. It's the 6th inning and get faster, and you've got an extended roster, and it's like, yeah, good idea. So, having those guys around, it really helps.
Well, as all good coaches know, it's a collective effort. You're not a dictator, and you need help, and you've got great help on your staff, and that's obvious with the success you've had throughout the history you've been there. So
yeah, I have to, shout out Coach Gilbody and Coach Payne. Those guys, they finished a freshman season. The way that I run my program, I'll be honest, we're not looking to win all the freshmen and JV regional championships. I'm not sending varsity and JV guys up and back and forth. I'm all about development and between, Coach Perrin and Coach Murnahan and Coach Rawl at the JV level, if I call and need a pitcher, they just take their starting pitcher down and throw somebody else. They have to throw somebody that's not a pitcher. They don't care.
Yeah.
They know ultimately they want all those kids to succeed at the varsity level, and that's tough when you're a JV or a freshman coach to just watch your best player get pulled up. And it's like, oh, he only got to throw 2 innings, but he could have thrown a complete game for me. But those guys understand it's the development there. And Coach Gilbody and Coach Payne, then we'll send somebody up to Coach Parent if needed. And then I've got Trent Hansen and Andy Johnson. They help at the freshman level too, and developing the pitchers and getting them ready. And ultimately, we those guys are, Coach Parent does quite a bit for us. Andrew's been with me. He played for me and has been with me for, they always make fun of me, but it's been the last 5 or 6 years, and maybe more, maybe longer. I'd like to say it's the last 10 years, but he does a lot. He's behind the scenes, a computer guy. He does our Google. He does this. He does that. He's got lots of good ideas. He's a young guy, and he keeps me going. And same way with Coach Shepard. So I got to give a lot of credit to those guys because they do a lot of things that make me look pretty good that I shouldn't get credit for because they do it. So, but that's how it goes.
Yep. Good shout outs there. I know you've had a lot of great teams during your tenure at Campbell County. Can you say whether or not this is one of the best teams you've ever assembled?
I'll be honest. Pitching wise, I think they compete. We've had some good ones, and I always talk about that. Talent wise, I don't know if it's the best team I have, but like this, you get to the postseason and you get down to this, everybody's pretty talented players by the time they come through a 6A school, but chemistry means so much more this time of the year.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to cop out on anything because with Schumacher on the mound, it's pretty easy to coach and get things done. But the same thing's been with Lucas. The same thing's been with Tripp. So it's not just it's not just Tyler. It's the fact that these guys play very well together as a team. probably my most talented team, but we were top 5 of the state all the time, lost in the first round of the region. That's one and done baseball. That's the people, I've had some really good ones, and, but this one ranks, of course, they're top 5. They're 5 regional championships, top 5 for sure. And pitching staff, I think they could argue their way through top to bottom, that they could argue that they're the best or not the best.
Yeah. So I saw somewhat of a frightening video on Facebook recently, and it was you doing some sort of celebration. While some might call it a gymnastics move, I'm not sure I would agree. So you've got to tell me about this and how it came about.
Well, early in the year, I don't remember, it was in the Reds Future Showcase, which shout out Tom Gamble. He always does a great job giving our kids some love and playing some cool venues and some cool events and gets the kids to the Reds game. So shout out to Tom and his team. But there was, I don't remember who was playing in front of us. It might have been Princeton and Dixie. Dixie was playing somebody. I don't remember who it was. But after they won, their kids did a bunch of backflips and they all stood around. Well, our kids joked about it back and forth, and Trip Mercurio, the sophomore, he's able to do a backflip. So he started doing backflips after we won a little bit later. And they were like, "Come on, coach, give us a backflip." And I said, "We win a region, I'll give you a backflip." And they were like, "Oh, shut up, you won't." Well, I mean, I used to be able to do a backflip years ago.
Wow.
In my early coaching days when I first came in, I've done backflips, I've done dumb things, but it had been probably 15 years since I had tried that, but I felt pretty safe with the training staff there. Shout out to Haley. She's the best, and UC doctors, they're good doctors. They would have taken care of me. And I was on turf. If that was dirt or concrete or a gravel parking lot, nope, I'm not trying it. But we went with turf, and had my shoe not fell off, if you watch the video, had my shoe not fell off, I would have landed it.
Oh,
I stand by that statement.
I did not see the shoe fall off. I will say this. I mean, no offense. It wasn't graceful. I would never attempt it because I would be in the hospital right now. It was a lot better than I would have ever imagined. If someone told me that was coming, I would have sat back and watched and been ready for you to fall on so but it was kudos to you, and I think that's great when you have that kind of fun with your players and your team, and I'm sure that they were waiting anxiously to see that happen. And if you haven't seen it, listeners, go out there and try to find it. I saw it on Facebook, and I'm sure if you put some sort of search with Campbell County, you can find it.
Yeah, it's honestly, I think I've had more people talk about the flip than they have the regional championship.
Well, they go hand in hand together. So speaking of that, moving on to the state tournament, this Friday at 10 a.m., you face LaRue County. Do you know much about them?
I mean, they're good. I look through, we've been through some things and talked to some coaches. And I mean, you get to the state tournament and I think they're 30-8, RPI way up there. Good team, senior laden team. I was told they'd be even better. They have a player that's injured that was very good. So, we got our work cut out for us. But like I tell everybody every time. I mean, when you're down to the final 16, no bad teams get in. We'll put our game plan together and we'll go out and you execute what you can execute, and if you go no errors and you give no free bases, you got a chance to win, and that's the push is what we'll plan is no free bases, and I think we got a good chance to continue to play.
Well, with your pitching staff, you absolutely have a chance, and obviously you've got great hitters from top to bottom with a balanced team. What are you telling these guys to try to keep them grounded and keep their focus on the game of baseball versus going down to play in Lexington at Legends Field?
It's more than Legends. I mean, our guys graduated Monday night. So we've got graduation. You got guys with summer jobs. You got guys with graduation parties, senior trips. You've got all kinds of stuff coming and going and moving. There's distractions everywhere. Honestly, I try to just continue to focus on being extremely positive. The practices are fun. The things we do are fun. I'm not a happy to be there kind of guy. I struggle with going in and taking in experiences. I want to win while I'm there. And I always tell the guys that winning while you're there will create better memories than just going there to be happy to be there. So, the big push is just continue to make sure these guys enjoy it, the core memories that they're making. And if they enjoy it, you'd be surprised how much they enjoy it. And our bench kids, man, those guys, I got to give shout out to our bench. When you have 10 seniors, not all of them are playing, but they're all cheering. And you look, they're on top of the pile, they're on bottom of the pile, and they're driving forces. We got our hats, our postseason hats out and play. And that makes the fun experience, the bus ride, the radio, the laughing, the dancing, and all that stuff. So I honestly, I tend to focus on trying to enjoy ourselves as much as possible, and reminding them that this is what you guys will talk about in 20 years. It's not the party that you're skipping, or it's not this. This is it.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. Is the spring sport, the distraction of the end of the year is. I mean, it's graduation's such a huge milestone for kids, and then you mix in high school baseball at the same time, and you're trying to get regional tournaments in around graduation and all that stuff. It's tough.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of music, is there any particular genre that you like to hear to get them pumped up, or are you totally on a different spectrum than they are?
It depends. They all spend their different time, and there's been some interesting radio choices, and there's some of them that is tradition, things they've done over the year. I remember they didn't play one of the songs they always played when we pulled in one day, and then they didn't play the song that they always pulled in. And I heard Tyler Schumacher say, "Well, if you guys want to continue to lose, just keep not playing that song." And and all joking, but I mean, I've heard everything from rap music that I have to tell them turn that off to Adele. I mean, Adele comes on regularly, Ella Langley, and you're like, what is happening right now?
That's great.
So it's very eclectic, and I have to give a shout out to Yvonne Steffen, our bus driver. Yvonne's driven us for the last 6-7 years, doesn't miss a trip, and she loves the guys. And the guys, part of our success is our team chemistry, and those bus rides have a lot to do with it. And when you have Yvonne driving every day, the kids love it. I mean, that was one of the first people they asked to get a team picture with after the game. They had to go find Yvonne. So
that's outstanding. What a shout out she deserves to drive those knuckleheads around all these years. Oh my gosh.
Late night, early mornings. That 4-game losing streak. We got back Friday night at 1:00, and we left Saturday afternoon at 3:00 to go back. So,
jeez. That's amazing.
She's the best.
Well, Scott, you're always a joy to talk to, whether it's on my podcast or otherwise, and I do appreciate you taking the time to join me. Best of luck with the rest of the week and practicing, and then your game at 10 a.m. on Friday. I hope that either you or Beechwood can bring home a state championship to Northern Kentucky, and I know you'll do your damnedest to try to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty fun to run into Coach Gray and the Tigers in the second weekend.
Yeah.
We've seen that, and we both got uphill battles, but at the end of the day, it would be fun to square off in that kind of a game against Coach Gray. We've had some good ones over the years, and I'm sure that one would be no different.
Two great guys with two great teams, and I appreciate you guys joining me for both the podcasts that you did, and best of luck the rest of the way, and I will see you soon.
Thanks, Joe. Have a good one.
Thank you.